We are live. What's up, wrestling fans? This is the Two Bros Wrestling Show coming at you live through the interwebs on a Sunday night. Kevin, what's happening, brother?
I am ready to talk about next weekend. Last weekend, we didn't have a Sunday night show because all the pay-per-views were back on Sunday live on YouTube. And next weekend, we have another pay-per-view. It's just the wrestling train just keeps on rolling.
It sure does. And we're doing the preview, the review, the preview, the review. Tonight, what are we previewing?
Money in the Bank. It is Money in the Bank time. I still feel like I'm in WrestleMania season somehow, and yet we're already talking Money in the Bank. But before we talk Money in the Bank, we'll get there in about 15 minutes. There is a lot of news to go over this week.
Yes, there is.
And Doug, as we hit that opening bell, what I originally had planned for our opening story, I will have as my second story because the breaking news that comes out this weekend, and it is shocking news. We've referred to R-Truth as a national treasure before. R-Truth has just, not disappeared. He has been actively involved, wrestled on Raw, was one of the main matches, had a world title match against John Cena at the last weekend's, Saturday night's main event.
His childhood idol, John Cena.
And he's gone.
Yeah. Just like that. Poof.
Just like that, after 17 years of service. Yes, R-Truth is, north of 50, 53 years old, and obviously, but the dude can still go. He's still entertaining. Mm-hmm. He is extremely well liked backstage. Doug, I'm sure, like many folks who have heard this news and were scouring around looking for details, it's hitting a little different than your typical release. And to be clear, he wasn't released. Apparently, his contract is not being renewed. But R-Truth was so beloved that you're reading a lot about morale issues and folks talking about the corporation being heartless and just genuine shock over this one, as opposed to what we have often seen in the nature of these things happening where folks are either let go or not renewed. And it's not like it is not only not like he isn't currently involved in storylines. He's still at 53 years old, a merchandise machine. Like, apparently his Ron Cena t-shirt is like in the top 3 still on WWE shop. So what do you make of this?
I think you hit it when you talked about his tenure in WWE. He is a 17-year veteran. I'm sure he has a pretty hefty contract that goes along with that, probably something where the corporation TKO is looking at where they can cut some corners, and there's this guy who's occasionally on TV who's not really living up to his end of his end of his contract. Not to say that Truth is not worth every penny that he's getting paid, but in a corporate sense, they're always cutting corners, always trying to pinch that penny and make it squirrel a little bit. This is one way to do that. Here's a guy 17 years deep. How much left does he have in him? He's not a main eventer. He's somebody we can let go. And I think it's in the cold, hard corporate world, that's exactly what this is. It's just a corporate decision.
Is that what the others backstage need to take from this? Is that, if they will get rid of R-Truth, they will literally get rid of anyone? Because if you're just talking about folks who would be willing to do anything that is asked of him, that's been R-Truth. Someone that is highly respected by everyone backstage, that's R-Truth. So if you're backstage and you realize that, even R-Truth can be in a main event one weekend and then gone the next, anybody's fair game.
Absolutely. I think so. Are you worth it in the eyes of the corporation? That's it. Are you earning that paycheck that the corporation is giving you? And if you're not, it's time to either step up or be prepared for, a late Friday night cut.
So sad that it is. Before we move to the next story, though, you asked the question rhetorically, how much does he have in the tank? How much does he have in the tank? Do you see an R-Truth at 53 popping up somewhere else. It's not like his total career has been in WWE. He is a former NWA World Champion back during the TNA era. Do you see him having any value to Tony Khan or maybe to a TNA?
So TNA seems to be very much in bed with the WWE. So I don't know that we're going to see the suntan Superman back in TNA anytime soon. But maybe Tony. I really think that Ron has a lot to give as a producer behind the
Oh, absolutely.
scenes.
I agree with that
But
100%.
it's do they want to renew that contract and keep things going? Well, apparently the answer to that is no. It's not even a consideration. So I
Just
don't know.
shocking. I think wherever he ends up, R-Truth has proven himself as someone who will get himself over and be a success. So if someone does take a flyer on Ron, the Truth Killings or K-Quick or R-Truth or whatever you
Mhm.
want to call it, I think even at 53, it will be money well spent. And so best of luck, R-Truth.
Absolutely.
Once you're done with the Two Bros Wrestling Show here, just head to your social media feeds and look at the outpouring from current talent who are equally dismayed and shocked by this decision. We have tributes pouring in from every corner of the wrestling world. Been really interesting to see. Again, just a weird PR move, really. You have nothing else for WWE on
It
this.
does. Again, this has to be just about money,
Bottom
and
line.
then
Yeah.
I really think so because I mean he is beloved. He is a loyal soldier, and at the end of the day, I can't think of anything else this could be other than this contract doesn't equal out. Our return on investment, the ROI isn't there, so we're going to go ahead and just not renew this. And he is 53.
That's
That's
old for the
that's
world of
in
wrestling.
wrestling in the wrestling world. That's old.
Yeah, it is. But it isn't on the independents. So I hear the independents are
Mhm.
already reaching out. And I'm sure R-Truth, if he wants to continue in the business, will have plenty of options. And we wish him well. We'll report here and follow and see what the next step in Ron the Truth Killing's career is.
Godspeed, R-Truth.
Now for the story that I was going to start with before this R-Truth blockbuster, and that was a follow-up to the breaking news we had while on air last week.
Mm.
That is WWE pulling the rug out from under New Orleans next year. The Wrestling Observer had some further reporting this week that said the decision was at least partially made due to the tremendous amount of money that Mania made in Vegas this year, and the fact the company knew that it could not make that same level of profit in New Orleans. Again, Doug, this company is about money. Um,
Yes.
Adding to the reason behind the bait and switch is the fact that TKO executives, many of them call the Vegas area home. And
Oh,
because
well.
Las Vegas is not only the likely landing spot, it's not been made official, like they haven't made an announcement, but it's not only the likely landing spot for this upcoming WrestleMania, it is likely the frequent landing spot for WrestleMania, is the word that a Wrestling Observer used, because of how lucrative it is. So it would not be a surprise to see this become a every couple of years fixture where Mania is back in Las Vegas. We'll continue to cover this story, obviously, as we know more. But what we definitely know is that, sorry, New Orleans, you're not getting Mania next year.
And there's just to piggyback off of this, there's so many indie promoters out there who had already booked places because they have to do these things a year in advance, especially when you have a WrestleMania announced on a certain day at a certain time, or two
Yeah.
days in this case is WrestleMania. So there are all these indie promoters who are already planning these huge events around that week. I know we talked last week briefly about people already making plans and travel plans and all that, but at that time I didn't realize how much has to go into securing a venue
Uh,
for these indie promoters who'd already done so and now are trying to scramble and figure out where they need to be and get out of these contracts that they've committed to.
And obviously, Vegas is the land of adult entertainment of all
Hmm.
stripes. And therefore, there's plenty of venues. But
Yes.
the ones you want, I'm sure these promoters were snatching them up. left and right. As soon as the switch has been, well, again, it's not official, but these same promoters
Right.
probably don't have the same amount of options in New Orleans. So I'm sure that they got those, the better facilities that was
Yes.
available snatched up from the competition early. And now they're going to, I'm
Now
sure,
they're
probably
stuck with
face,
them. Yeah.
either stuck with them or they too will have to cancel. And they may not have the same type of either insurance or protections in the contract, or some
Right.
folks are going to be out of a lot of money because of WWE's decision. Yeah, that is an ancillary effect that we weren't really necessarily focused on last week when we were breaking this news. Two more follow-up stories that we brought to you last week, and those were health related. We had a lot of health news, and then this week we want to give you the follow-up on several of those individuals who have since progressed in their hopeful recoveries. First, of course, is good old JR. We had reported last week that JR, Jim Ross, had been diagnosed with colon cancer. Now we can report that JR is out of his cancer surgery where they supposedly got it all and is on his way to his rehabilitation. His friend and podcaster Conrad Thompson gave the details in saying that the surgeons were able to get it all. JR had not posted those details, but just said that he had what he called a successful surgery and that he was beginning his rehabilitation. No word on how long we can expect JR to be away from the public spotlight, but however long he needs, this is great news, and we wish him the best on full recovery.
Absolutely. Good luck on your recovery, JR, and folks, get your screenings.
Absolutely. We also talked last week about that gruesome injury, the knee injury that was suffered live on Raw by Zoe Stark. Well, Zoe, too, has since had her surgery. It was also deemed successful. Zoe took to her own socials to say that she's officially in the recovery process. Still no word on the exact type of knee injury or just how long Zoe is going to be out of action, but she did use the words "for a while," and honestly, with one serious knee injury already, having a surgery in her past, and then seeing the way she was clutching on Raw a couple of weeks ago, a while is absolutely what should have been expected. So again, just as with JR, Zoe, best to you on a full recovery from your surgery as well.
Absolutely.
Doug, here's someone that you may not wish as well. Someone we haven't talked about in a few minutes. Vincent Kennedy McMahon.
He's a bad penny. Bad penny. You just can't get away from him in the news.
If you have to mention it, the architect of modern pro wrestling did make the news again this week. The long-rumored next business venture of Vince McMahon was officially revealed. Last year, we knew that he registered a company called 14th and I, and this week we found out that 14th and I is a private investment and production company focused on sports, media, and entertainment. The name appears to be reference to Vince Sr.'s old Capital Wrestling Corporation, which is a precursor to the WWF and then WWF, and of course now WWE. But going all the way back to when Vince Sr. had the Capital Wrestling Corporation, it was centered in Washington, D.C. The headquarters were at 14th and the corner of 14th and I Street. So not a wrestling company, but Vince still paying tribute to his wrestling legacy in case you would want to forget his role. He will not let us. But
no.
Doug, do you want to give a good luck and much success wishes to Vincent Kennedy McMahon?
No.
Good. Smart move.
Sorry. No, can't do it.
And we don't want to get canceled. This next one is a story type that we seem to be doing a whole lot more of here lately, and that's AEW stars leaving for WWE. Mariah May, who really elevated herself over the last 2 years in AEW, was removed from the promotion's roster page on Friday afternoon. As first reported by Fightful Select, May is expected to sign with WWE soon. Actually, as soon as her contract expires with Tony Khan. Not exactly clear when that will be, but obviously we have not seen May in a while, so they're wanting to make sure we don't have her fresh in our minds whenever that moment comes. She has not appeared on AEW television since March and the Revolution pay-per-view, where she finished her well-received trilogy with Tony Storm. I absolutely cannot bet against Mariah May or whatever her new name will be when she ends up in WWE. She is extremely talented. She showed that a lot in the last couple of years. I think she'll do well in a crowded WWE landscape. I still think that she will rise to the top.
She will definitely do well in WWE. It's almost like Tony's started like his own little NXT for Triple H at this point, with everybody just scooching on over.
Do you think that's where she's headed? Do you think she'll probably go to NXT first, or is she already seasoned enough to show up on the main roster? It seems like we're seeing some pretty short NXT stints and a lot of hot potato title pictures happening in NXT just because poor Sean has to move his booking around all these call-ups.
Yeah, with Julia and Stephanie Vancouver, I get it. They want to get a little bit more English under their belts because WWE is leaning hard into that, especially with all the lucha talent they're they are absorbing right now. Let's get everybody's English up a little bit. Not that, Julia or Vancouver, well, I guess Vancouver counts as lucha. But anyway, get the English skills up so they can cut promos on the main roster, then get them up there. Mariah already fluent in English, maybe she goes straight to Raw or SmackDown.
I think in some ways that makes some sense as to not NXT is already crowded with really young talent, and Mariah is not someone who's so young she needs to learn who. I would hate to see her go to NXT, get put in a program, and then after a month get pulled on up, and then they'd have a big hole in her booking. So it would not surprise me to see her show up on the main roster. More WWE, AEW connection news, Doug. That's sort of the segue for this next one, because I think WWE is, it's fair to say, is continuing to troll AEW. After last weekend's event where NXT hosted a pay-per-view opposite AEW's pay-per-view, WWE is set to do it again, and this time against AEW's biggest show of the year. The NXT Great American Bash is going to be the show that is opposite AEW's All In Texas on July 11th. And that is also the same weekend that WWE will also now host the second ever WWE Evolution event, which will actually happen on that Sunday, the second all-female pay-per-view. So WWE is going big on that weekend as well. Obviously, AEW is still going to have a ton of attention for their giant stadium show, but it is kind of telling that WWE doesn't care to take something that is as newsworthy as their all-female pay-per-view and then the next NXT pay-per-view and just go head-to-head with AEW. Sure. No fear whatsoever.
No, but they're not counter-programming at all. No counter-programming. No.
We pay no attention to them.
Pure coincidence. Complete coincidence.
Doug, in our main event, as we said earlier, we're going to be previewing WWE's Money in the Bank. But just want to have a little programming note here, because as we have also been reporting here and elsewhere, is that because WWE has a new acquisition in AAA, Money in the Bank is not the only event happening next Saturday. It will also be our first taste of WWE's Lucha acquisition when we get Worlds Collide that Saturday afternoon, where they will have AAA talent, NXT talent, a handful of main roster talent, all on this Worlds Collide show. But the reason I wanted to pull this out and make a point of it in our opening bell segment is that I find it curious, because at first when I hear of this, I'm thinking it's going to be a long day on Peacock. But Worlds Collide is not being advertised as a PLE on Peacock like many had expected. But announcers have been making it pretty clear that the event is going to be on WWE's YouTube channel, which will mean that it'll air for free. Had you noticed that?
I had missed that, but that is interesting.
I don't know if it's just the opportunity to get as many eyes on the new product as possible, or if it just happened so quickly that it was not fitting into Peacock's plans and schedule. If there's maybe some contractual things that WWE has with Peacock about how many they produce, but want to make sure the folks out there watching us tune in and plan their viewing accordingly. We'll obviously be next weekend doing our review show of Money in the Bank, but here in a couple of weeks, once the dust settles a little more we'll not only look at the results of Worlds Collide, but bigger picture, we have a show here in 2 weeks where we're going to look at the acquisition and what Worlds Collide may tell us just about how WWE is going to be handling this new promotion. It'll be interesting to watch.
I think it's been interesting so far the way WWE is already promoting some of the AAA talent and matches coming out when and even giving away some of the AAA booking ahead of time.
At least when it comes to the main event scene, it's very obvious that even though this acquisition is not really official as far as in the books, all the lawyers signed off on it, WWE is very obviously having a heavy hand in the booking of what's happening in Mexico right now.
Yes, they are. And cleaning up that roster, it appears.
Last story, Doug, before we'll go to our preview, I just want to make a passing mention of the fact that the music world lost the rock and roll star Rick Derringer this week at the age of 77. Derringer was not even 18 years old when he rose to fame as a member of the McCoys, having penned and sang their biggest hits, Hang On Sloopy, all the way back in 1965. Of course, in the 70s, he went solo. Most folks, when they think Rick Derringer, probably think of the song Rock and Roll Hoochie Coo, but he was also a big on-demand producer, writer, collaborator. And Doug, I think you know where I'm going with this. No?
No.
There's a wrestling connection here that
really
for wrestling fans in the 80s, Rick Derringer worked with WWE, produced both the wrestling album and Pile Driver, the wrestling album too.
I did not realize Rick Derringer produced those.
So even though most of those songs are sung by the wrestlers, most of them were written by Rick, but not all of the songs were sung by the wrestlers. There are two in particular I will point out. The song Demolition for the tag team of the same name was sung by Rick Derringer. But even more so, probably the most popular, famous wrestling theme song of all time, Real American, is sung by Rick Derringer. Interesting side note, Real American originally intended as the theme song and used for a while by the U.S. Express, Barry Windham and Mike Rotunda, before it was famously switched to the way that we all remember it, Brother, and that is the theme song for one Hulk Hogan. So that is why I mentioned the passing of Rick Derringer, probably the most famous wrestling theme song of all time that is original to a wrestling theme song, and that is the work of Rick Derringer. So rest in peace, Rick Derringer.
Rest in peace.
And with that, Doug.
Main event time. All right. Let me pull up the wackiness that is Money in the Bank 2025.
Money in the Bank 2025.
Here we go. All right.
I was going to say let's hit our Money in the Bank matches themselves last, which they will take some time. Obviously, there's a lot that goes into these Money in the Bank matches time-wise. So that will be at least as far as the amount of real estate taken on this pay-per-view, that'll be on these last two matches. To date, we only have two other matches to talk about and preview that are official. So let's do that right now. I know it's a title match, but I do think that you're going to end up with Cody and John Cena. They're going to be higher up on the card. So let's talk about the last chance match for the WWE Women's Intercontinental Championship, where you have your champion, Lyra Valkyria, versus Becky Lynch. Obviously, by that stipulation, last chance, if Becky loses, that means she can no longer challenge for the title as long as Valkyria is champion. It's a little bit different on the stipulation on the other side, because if Valkyria loses, she's just going to be forced to raise Becky Lynch's hand and acknowledge that Becky is, in fact, the better woman. I love wrestling.
It's great. It really is.
And these two are great. These two Irish lasses are just, mentor versus mentee. They have already shown they have a great chemistry. I'm really looking forward to this one. I don't see a different result, honestly, than what we got last time. So I think that this might be Becky moving on to something else and Lyra getting a chance, now that she'll be established as Intercontinental Champion, to continue her reign with another program against another wrestler. But do you see it differently?
So I think there is a good chance for Becky to come out on top, maybe even through some shenanigans, not necessarily making her the man, the better woman here, right? But then Lyra is chasing after that to lead to something at SummerSlam, so we kind of keep getting a build. So I think Bex may have a chance here to go ahead and take that and have her hand raised at the end of the match, just so that we can build to something bigger and a rematch for the title at SummerSlam. I'm already booking ahead here.
I like the booking. In fact, the last time that these two met on pay-per-view, I think I actually predicted that this could be the title switch, that Becky would take it. And then when she didn't, and the match was so good, it was actually the best match on the show, that I thought, okay, they are doing this to mint Lyra. Obviously, keeping a program going with Becky and the chemistry they have is a further way of minting Lyra. So I like your booking. I might be wrong on this one, but we'll disagree on this one and see how we shake out next weekend when we talk about it.
Let's do it. Hey, we've been wrong before, and I love to be wrong when it comes to wrestling, because then I stand up and go, "What? I didn't see that coming. This is awesome."
It happens a bit from time to time.
Yeah,
Doug,
from
this
time to
next
time.
one, I don't know if there's a lot of ways we can go with this one. It very well could be the last match on the show, just because it is a John Cena match.
Right.
And it is the return of Cody Rhodes to the ring as well. But let's go ahead and talk about it so that we can break down the Money in the Bank matches together. But again, wouldn't surprise me if this ends up being the main event, even though there's nothing really at stake, no titles or what have you. But this is obviously a storyline continuation for all the men involved. We got your two champions in this one. You got Jey Uso on one side teaming with Cody Rhodes, versus John Cena on the other side teaming with Logan Paul. John Cena taking off those calendar appearances. We got to be in the low 20s after this one. Nothing is at stake, but I do believe that it probably is just a way to get to round 2 for each of these individual feuds. So they really could do that by either the heels or the faces going out on top. But because we need some feel good in a pay-per-view that's not going to have a lot in the way of championships or opportunities for, your biggest stars to be there with their hands raised, I think that I want to go with Jey. Jey and Cody on this one. And it's not John Cena taking the fall, by the way. John Cena will not take a fall until he loses that title.
I'm thinking just the opposite, not about who wins, but about who takes the fall, because I think it's a great way for Cody to get his WrestleMania heat back by actually pinning Cena, then having the argument of like, hey, I can pin you, I can beat you, and then just kind of working with that. Again, I'm armchair booking here, but I'm thinking, definitely, the good guys win this. Who takes that pin? Under normal circumstances, I would say, yeah, you're right. Jay's taking the pin here. However, I see it better to get a lot of the fans behind Cody again. Not that he needs fans to get behind him, but it gets Cody's heat back. It gets him. It gets that momentum going again.
You said Jay, but I think you meant Logan Paul. Logan's not the one taking the pin, but it is going to be John Cena taking the pin in your mind. But you do agree that the faces are going to win this one.
Absolutely. I'm seeing Cena taking it from Cody, while Jay holds Logan Paul at bay.
Do we both agree that it is got to be? I don't know that it's Logan Paul, Jey Uso at SummerSlam, but it's definitely got to be Cody Rhodes, John Cena too at SummerSlam.
Yes, I definitely think that that has to happen.
That is where we're going. Um, and so this is one way of getting there. But there is SummerSlam's in August, so
Hmm.
still I know that like they moved it around a time or two, had it a little earlier last year, but I think that there is a at least one pay per view in between here, but that they'll have to figure out a step for, and maybe even another opponent for John Cena to be on the card,
Hmm.
but. For this instance, we got a tag team match with nothing at stake that Doug and I both agree that the faces are going to go over on this one,
Yeah.
which leaves us to future headliners that need to
Hmm.
be in championship matches. And those are going to be what we'll have hanging over the head of our champions all year long, with a Money in the Bank contender just waiting in the wings. Always
Hmm.
kind of an interesting stipulation, always a storyline opportunity moving into the mini pay-per-views and shows that'll follow this one as to when somebody decides to cash in or not. We have in each instance, Doug, right now, even though the show is less than a week away, we still have a
Yeah.
hole in both of these. So
I see
Raw,
that. Yeah.
SmackDown, you're going to, this week, we will probably, in both of these, maybe as soon as tomorrow night, obviously no later than Friday night, we will have additional men and women added to these matches. We're going to talk about what we have. We have, for the women's Money in the Bank ladder match right now, we have Alexa Bliss, Roxanne Perez,
Mhm.
Rhea Ripley, Julia, Naomi, and then to be decided. Doug, before we talk about who makes sense out of these women to win, do you have any thoughts about who that to be decided could possibly be?
I really have some wild, wild theories, but I, I really, I almost want to see Nikki Cross somehow come out of this,
Uh,
be in there, which then will seal the deal with an Alexa Bliss Wyatt six. Finally we get that team all put together, all the pieces fall into place. Then where Alexa takes her rightful place as the leader of the Wyatt six, and Nikki is there just to put Alexa over in the Money in the Bank to ensure that she gets that. Either
I
way,
like I like Nikki Cross as a potential add to this match with Wyatt Six just recently showing back up. That makes some sense. I think another very strong possibility is a Stephanie Vakir.
oh
She
yeah,
is very much rumored to be on her way to Raw as part of the permanent main roster. She did
hmm,
just lose her championship in very shocking fashion on NXT television this past week
yep.
on the same show that Ricky Saints also shockingly lost his championship. So again,
Oh no,
as we were, well, and
uh huh,
NXT, yeah, in any other instance, I would say this is hot shot booking. We don't like this, but Shawn Michaels has has a knack for keeping the TV interesting, and he is at the whims of what the main roster
yeah,
Chiefs want. So he's like that little like local territory, that little indie promotion that's
yes,
constantly losing the stars and having to build new
hmm,
stars, and it makes for a really dynamic program. But Stephanie Vakir lost that title on the main event, and I would not be surprised if they immediately elevate her into Money in the Bank. No chance is there that that spot might go to another big surprise like someone we talked about in our opening bell. I mean, I know we
mm,
don't know when her contract is up, but is this? I wouldn't necessarily do it. I think that maybe
no,
now that I'm speaking out loud, as big as a star as she was in AEW, we maybe shouldn't be overly presumptuous that Mariah May
right,
would be have an impact as like a wow for your average WWE fan. They might not know her
yeah.
yet.
This isn't like they're pulling Cody over or even Penta. No,
Yeah,
this is
someone newer.
yeah, yeah. I, I think just like Ricky Starks or Ricky Saints, there's got to be some time spent in NXT. And the more I think about this for Mariah May, she has to spend some time in NXT to learn the WWE way to do things. Because it's not like Ricky needed time in NXT to do anything other than learn WWE TV and learn that process.
So as far as who the extra person to be added to this, Doug predicting Nikki Cross. I'm going with Stephanie Vakir. Assuming those women could even be possibly in the mix, who do you have? Who do you like for this one? I know it's hard to predict these multi-person matches because there's so many forks in the road, paths that can be taken. I can see storylines for most of these women that would make sense coming out of this as someone who is a potential threatening champion in the background. But for me, I'm going to go Roxanne Perez. I'm going to go Roxanne because not only is she a recent elevation from NXT, it's been obvious for some time that she has just been pegged for bigger things in WWE. And there's something about that undersized, sneaky heel, like who's just waiting in the wings for her opportunity to be opportunistic. I think someone like her makes a lot more sense to come in and sort of steal a title away from somebody as opposed to a Rhea Ripley who could just, come in and challenge you to a match and just beat the crap out of you and take it from you. Whereas Roxanne might have to be a little more strategic about it. So I want to go Roxanne.
See, I'm still sticking with my original theory, not necessarily Nikki Cross, but because honestly, your theory of Stephanie Vakir makes much more sense, than my like armchair wishful booking. But I still think Alexa Bliss is coming out of this. I think it's Little Miss Bliss's time to reassert her dominance in the women's division.
And that is a good way of framing it because it would be a reassertion. It's been at this point wow, we're just happy to have her back kind of reaction and booking, and not anything that has really moved her into that next level main event scene that she was in before she left. So this would be a way to do that prior to Evolution, which again is right around the corner in July.
Yes.
Doug, that leads us to the men's Money in the Bank ladder match. And what we have right there is Solo Sikoa, LA Knight, Penta, Seth Rollins, Andrade, and then to be decided. Is that to be decided anyone that you have a strong opinion on? Because I'm looking at this and I have an opinion on who I think it could be.
Well, I think the same applies to Ricky Sainz as it does to Stephanie Vakir with the logic you had before. I mean, I'd love to see that be Jacob Fatu, but I think it, just the way we've been talking, the logic booking here, I don't have any wacky booking for this one, but logically it does kind of point to Ricky, coming on up too.
And Ricky is someone who I think is also maybe someone that WWE fans, the casual fan, may not know if they weren't familiar with his AEW work or his NWA work prior to. I think that as far as a debut, that makes a ton of sense to me as well. And the fact that he lost the title that he had not had all that long also would point to that. If you don't go that route and you instead go the route of someone who is currently on the roster, I'm with you. Storyline wise, Jacob Fatu standing in the way of his cousin makes a lot of sense. Another way that they could go, just based on how WWE likes to book, is some sort of qualifier where you get Braun Breaker in there I'm going to help my man Seth Rollins walk away with this. That is some 101 booking that WWE likes to do as well. I don't feel I know which of those three is the most obvious way they're going to go. I do feel a lot stronger about who the to be decided is in the women's match than I do the men's match, to be honest with you. If I had to pick one, I'm actually going to say it's maybe more likely to be Fatu with Saints like a close second, and then a Braun Breaker situation of stacking the deck third for Seth Rollins.
Yeah.
Now you took a rather brave approach with the women's Money in the Bank. You predicted a winner as being someone who is not even yet officially in the match. So for the men's side, are you confident that one of the announced wrestlers is going to win, or are you confident that a Ricky Saints or somebody's going to come in and surprise all of
Oh
us?
yeah, Seth. I think I want this to be Penta on that side, but Seth is going to come out with the Money in the Bank.
Do you think that it's because? And I agree with you. I think that Penta is a viable option, but I feel like Seth. To me, the idea of a faction around a faction that keeps expanding, by the way, as we saw last week on Raw, a faction that is solely there to make sure that this happens for Seth Rollins is a much more dangerous faction if you not only start ramping up the manpower as they're doing, but you also
Hmm.
are sitting there holding the golden ticket
Yes,
to
yes.
take that title away from. So do you think that Seth versus Seth does anything with this before SummerSlam? Because knowing that we're setting up SummerSlam, is there an opponent for Jay that you can see in the wings that makes sense as a major program? Is Gunther? I mean, I think sort of the
Mm-hmm.
handshake. You know, I'm giving you your props. The better man won. I feel like that's Gunther kind of bowing out for the moment. But
Yeah.
if Seth is to make a splash at SummerSlam, say he was the Money in the Bank um, briefcase holder, Jay would have to be in the ring with somebody, and I don't right now see who that somebody logically is. I don't see a very
Hmm.
obvious person waiting in the wings. It could be one of these other men in this match.
This is very, very true. I don't really, I don't know. That's hard because I mean, Seth being the heel right now has to be that heel that comes in again, just like what was it, WrestleMania where he takes the runs down, cashes in. He's got to do that again just to be that much more of the heel about it. Not necessarily at WrestleMania. Could do it at SummerSlam. He could do it by the end of this night. We
Yeah,
have
well,
that,
that's
but.
true. That's true. Both champions are otherwise occupied in a tag title match. And that would be one reason to have that non title, non stakes title match on last.
Yeah,
That way you'd
so
already have your
so totally
winner.
could.
Oh, so what we're saying is they don't have a lot of matches right now booked for Money in the Bank. They probably won't book that many more, considering that
Hmm.
WWE these days takes the approach, which I wholeheartedly agree with, that less can be more. But the
Yes.
booking of this one, maybe what we're saying here on the Two Bro Wrestling Show is as much as listening to our predictions. Let's watch the match order. That will have a lot
Hmm.
to say about how we feel that this is going to be booked because again, right now, not a whole lot in the way of title matches. We got a single title match. So if you want to have some big news coming out, not only would it be a hey who won the Money in the Bank match, but could have a Money in the Bank
Hmm.
could have a Money in the Bank cash in on night
Sure
one.
could.
We have
Yeah.
seen that before. Could be interesting, but regardless, it should be a good night. It will certainly be a newsworthy day with WWE having the World Collide event happening earlier in the afternoon. We will have both these events covered in time over the next few weeks of the Two Bros Wrestling Show. And if you don't agree with our predictions here, let us know. Let us know
Let us know.
who do you think that some of these surprise entrants are going to be and who our winners are going to be in case you feel we have it wrong. And with that, Doug, it's
Ooh,
big
big
finish
finish.
time.
I got some notes over here about big finish. Okay.
Well, I am for my big finish. It's the 1, 2, 3, as you know. And last weekend, we ended up doing our show prior to the weekend because the holiday weekend was jammed full of pay per
Hmm.
views and special events, three to be accurate. And I have one of my big finish items for each of these three events.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I didn't
So
do it thematically. It just happened to end up that way. So, botch of the week.
okay, so botch of the week. I'm going not necessarily wrestling related. It's more wrestling adjacent. I know we talked about JR and his current battle with colon cancer and how it sounds like he is on the other side of that, just needs to recover. However, the man, the myth, the legend, Ric Flair had to do some very a very distasteful tweet about it, which he quickly retracted and say he was just joking. Because have you seen this, Kevin? Where
No.
Flair tweets about how it's typical JR, always attention seeking. Stop doing that and get back to worrying about your health. And and then everybody got onto him about it on Twitter or X, and then he later deleted that tweet and said, "Hey, if you can't take a joke from a 70-year-old man, you're taking life too seriously," or something like that. I'm not sure where the joke in that was or why
Yeah. What's
why
the joke?
Flair wanted to go out and attack good old JR, but I'm calling that my botch of the week for this week.
Yeah, I know that at one time the two men were close, but probably worth pointing out, hearing this story for the first time, but the first thing I'm thinking of is that maybe they aren't close anymore because JR essentially lost his job in WWE because of Ric Flair. So the fact that there could be it was JR's responsibility, as if one adult male has to be responsible for another adult male who should be responsible for himself. But Ric Flair got himself in no condition to be in a panel where he embarrassed himself, the company, and JR is the one who paid the price for it. So, maybe they no longer get along. But I 100% agree. That's pretty distasteful. However you'd want to look at it, there is no joke there. My botch of the week comes from Saturday night's main event. As I mentioned, I've got one for each of the big events from last weekend. But Jesse the Body Ventura, I love Jesse. I think sometimes it's quite hilarious when they bring on former talent or people who either do not follow the current product or just do not know how wrestling works now compared to it did in their day. I don't know if you know where I'm going with this, Doug, or if you saw Saturday night's main event, but the Body absolutely buried the whole cage match gimmick on Saturday night's main event. After Damian Priest beat Drew McIntyre, Jesse was just relentless in talking about how cowardly it was that Priest could just win by walking out of the cage rather than getting a pin or even just going over the cage. And the more that Pat and Cole tried to cover, the more adamant Jesse got. It would be bad enough if Drew had won, but it's obviously doubly bad when your babyface is the one who looks like a coward thanks to your announced commentary.
Now, we can play this as Jesse being the heel announcer at that point, going a little old school Bobby the Brain there, just working the heel angle.
He was doing eventually I think Cole and Pat kind of got to we'll agree to disagree, and they just tried to start changing the subject because the more they tried to argue it with him or explain why in a WWE cage match it's also possible to win by going out the door, then more Jesse just doubled down on how that is a horrible cowardly thing to do.
In my day, we'd pin the man or go over the top.
And of course, I'm sure because of the former governor's status in WWE, it's all forgiven. It just was funny. Although I can imagine in the old days, there would have been an older man in his ear set, just absolutely cursing and yelling at him for like, "What are you doing? You're burying the gimmick." Kind of funny all the way around, though.
Oh, that's
Performance
good stuff.
of the week, Doug.
Performance of the week, I'm going performer, and I'm going with Will Ospreay for the stellar work that he is doing to try and get Hangman Page over as the guy. Even going as far to say as I thought I was the guy, thought you might have been the guy talking to Swerve, but then totally selling it that we were both wrong. He's the guy.
It's him.
I don't necessarily agree with that. I think Will Ospreay's the guy, but I'm going to give props to Ospreay for pushing so hard to get this concept over that Hangman is the guy that is now going to save AEW and get that belt out of the briefcase.
Yep. Yeah, that was great work. Absolutely great work. I'm going with NXT and their PLE that they had on Saturday night. At that pay-per-view, Trick Williams walked away the TNA World Champion. And I like this for so many reasons. I've liked Trick for a while. It's been very obvious that he has been the center of the brand after, on the male side, has been the center of the brand for some time. Probably could walk right onto Raw or SmackDown and fit in just fine right now, but they need him in NXT. I liked him so well, though, I wasn't sure that I was going to like him as a heel. He was so good as a babyface.
Right.
The crowd singing along with his theme song. The dude is just charismatic and over. And I'm like, oh man, I don't want to see him as a heel. And then he showed that there are multiple levels to his game, and he is an excellent, excellent heel. A heel who has stolen another promotion's world championship, has renamed it the whole promotion Trick and They, and has refused to appear on their flagship broadcast of Impact Wrestling, all of which is just brilliant chef's kiss heel work.
Yeah.
No notes. Trick Williams killing the game out there now as the one who is holding hostage to the TNA World Championship, which some folks may look at it and go, oh, isn't that disrespectful to TNA to have it? No, like it is the complete through line of stories on TNA television, is the whole locker room coalescing together around, hey, this outsider has taken what we have worked so hard to build. You're getting way more eyes on your product by having some outsider take your title, and you're already seeing it. Santana making his WWE debut, showing up on NXT television in order to try to take back the TNA championship to TNA. I don't think Santana will be the guy. Joe Hendry still has something to say about it, and there's others, but this is just the start of a long line of programming that you can book of Trick Williams refusing to be on the show or along with any of the promotions work that they would want for him as champion. It's been great, and I can't wait to see where they go with it.
Sounds good.
Doug, match of the week. I think there might be some agreement on this one.
So I'm going to go back to Double or Nothing for this one. And, the man I just mentioned as my performer of the week, for all the same reasons, him putting over Hangman like he did. Again, I disagree with this because I think Will Ospreay, yes, Hangman has been there since day one. We can try and sell him as the heart and soul of AEW, but Will should be this guy, at least in my opinion. And I think the opinion of a lot of us. However, Hangman is the guy. Hangman was put over so well. And, not to say that Hangman doesn't deserve what he's got here. Hangman can work. I just think Will can work better. Will is a favorite of mine. But together, these guys blew the roof off the place. This was, for me, it was a 5-star match. I just loved this. I just loved how it all came together.
I want to point out something I read this week, and it's something that apparently is not all that uncommon, even though you might think wrestling is such a competitive business that everyone's in it for his or herself. But apparently in the lead up to Double or Nothing, both men had lobbied Tony Khan to let the other guy win. Like you would think, and you hear stories all the time of a guy who's lobbying to I should be the one to go over.
Right.
This guy refuses to lose or whatever. This is an instance where both Will Ospreay is telling Tony Khan, no, Hangman is the man. That's not a storyline. Apparently this is the way it went down backstage. Is you got to make it him. And on the reverse, Hangman is in Tony's ear going, Will Ospreay is the center of this promotion. It's got to be Will Ospreay. I love that story. And the fact that we're in this as a company, it's bigger together. We build the company than to build ourselves, which is a great backdrop for the match. It also is my match of the week. How could it be anything else? Jordan Grace, Stephanie Vakir, runner up for me because they just tore it down. But these two went out, Ospreay and Hangman went out and set up a brilliant match, well-paced. They deserved a fresher crowd probably, but that's, is again, much to the, nothing's going to change as far as the length of Tony Khan's pay-per-views, unfortunately. I did like that he at least had the Anarchy in the arena match happen first.
Yeah.
I was very surprised and happy that these two men got the spotlight that they deserve to finish off this this tournament. And what a match. They went out for almost 40 minutes and showed why they deserve to be one-on-one in the main event. Like you, we obviously had predicted this one the same, and it was not the winner we had predicted. I see the storyline of Hangman in Texas, all of that, and it'll be a great match. There's no doubt about it in my mind that they will also have a great match. We just saw what Hangman is capable of. That wasn't just Will Ospreay. It takes two to tango. Perfect match. I'm with you. 5 stars.
Yeah,
go see it if you didn't.
And, even though I think Ospreay was the guy, storyline wise, you have Hangman there since day one, the man who went up against Chris Jericho for that first AEW title ever. It is a really feel good story once we finally get to that conclusion. And we also have the redemption of Hangman here, with a little bit of redemption of Swerve too, and everybody agreeing that they weren't on they've probably done some wrong things, but they are where they are in it. It's coming together well. I do think that Will Ospreay, like Stone Cold Steve Austin before him, doesn't need a title belt to be the centerpiece of the company, but eventually he'll get it.
Well, and then he also just showed, again, with the backstage news you heard about how this came together. He's also getting the reputation as not just the center of the promotion, but a selfless center of a promotion, which is a little less common in pro wrestling, where oftentimes the center of a promotion is a self-serving individual who is there.
Creative control. I need
that sort of center of the promotion. Will Ospreay, he's a different bruv.
I know.
That's right.
Such a different bruv.
Go see this match, folks. Anyone that didn't see it, absolutely put it to your must-watch list. And I'm going to go watch it again.
Yeah, everybody should.
We're back next Sunday night because the WWE pay-per-view is Saturday. We're back next Sunday live on our YouTube channel, and then, of course, on demand on both our YouTube and Facebook channel. And then the following week, we will be talking about the bigger picture of what happened at Worlds Collide, as well as what it means for the future of AAA, what it means for the future of WWE, what it means for the future of Lucha Libre and Mexican wrestling at large. That is a much bigger topic that's deserving of its own show. That's why we got you covered the next 2 weeks. But until then,
time to go watch some wrestling. Thanks for watching, everybody.
See you next time.